And Chris Bryant, what? They're having a kid?
Yeah. Ooh, how about that? You want to start?
Sure,
let's do it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast hosted by two comedians who love the Cubs but do not live in Chicago. I am one of those two. My name is Adam Amawala, and I'm here in person, live and in person, with the other, who lives here.
The other. I live here. I live where we are right now. I'm Kevin McCaffrey. We're in the podcast studio, the official Away Games podcast studio, which frequently I'm in, and then you're not. We're Skyping.
Right.
But then lately I've been on the road and we've other Skypey stuff. But now this is the best audio quality that we have the ability to have, and we're just more connected.
Right. Very much so.
Because we're here. We're looking at each other. It's all.
I'm not looking at your silhouette like you're one of those people giving testimony in like a mob documentary who doesn't want to be seen.
Oh, totally. Like the Tony the Tiger commercials. like that, too.
With the weird, like, low voice modulation sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what it was, I think, last time when we were Skyping, where I was just a darkened silhouette that Adam was talking to.
I also found a picture on my phone from maybe like 2 or 3 months ago where I think you were at your mom's house and you were like weirdly laying on like I guess maybe your mom's bed because that's like where the best Wi-Fi was.
My mom's Wi-Fi does not really get down to where the guest room is, so I was in my mom's, basically where my mom's husband sleeps a lot. Right. Wally's spot and Wally
World.
Wally World. And it was the only way to talk to you was unfortunately in a seductive posing of some sort. I was really leaning on my left, real casually. Sup, Adam, let's talk Cubs, basically, was my pose.
It's not overly flattering. I'll post it as a TBT at some point and see if you notice it.
Cool. Can't wait. We've got follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter. We do a lot of great work there, I'll say it. And then we're also on Instagram at Away Games Pod. So check us out there. And what we're doing today, we're really kind of diving into the offseason, what we can expect, some names to look out for, what we want to happen, all that stuff. I got a big fucking spreadsheet going on. We are a podcast that says fuck, which does set us apart in the Cubs podcastosphere.
Sorry, Marquee.
Yeah, sorry, Marquee. We'll clean it up if they offer a contract. Yeah.
We can and will and often do work clean.
Yeah, we've probably done clean shows together, I assume.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We performed at a golf course.
Oh, Christ, yeah. In New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
It was like kind of by where you grew up.
Although, to be fair, I don't know that we had to be clean for that, but I feel like we just were.
I feel like it was mostly clean.
Yeah.
Can you guys imagine you could have seen me and Adam talking in the same place live? It'll happen again. So the only Cubs news really this week is Anthony Rizzo announced that he has a dog. That dog's name, do you know the dog's name?
I don't.
It's Kevin.
Really?
Yeah, it's an insane name for a dog. I approve.
I kind of like dogs with human names. I think it's funny.
It is funny. It's just, obviously I'm biased. My name is Kevin, so it seems strange to me that someone would be talking to a dog in the same way they'd be talking to me. Hello, Kevin. Let me give you a scratch. Is
right.
Weird. Wrestler Seth Rollins also has a dog named Kevin. Kevin's really getting over as a dog name lately.
Well, I'll tell you what. After the podcast is done, if I feel you've done well, I'll be like, who's a good boy, Kevin?
Yeah, and then both me and Rizzo's dog will perk up. It's good. It's good Instagram comments. A good dog. He poses well.
Does Kevin the dog have his own Instagram yet?
He doesn't, but I get the feeling he's just going to take over Anthony's.
Yeah, he
kind
might.
of, which is good. Fine. That's cool. So that, and then Chris Bryant having to be a big shot, having to take the spotlight. He's having a baby.
He should name it Kevin.
He should name it Kevin. They name everything Kevin.
Or he should name it like a dog name.
Yeah. Yeah, Rufus. Yeah, Fido Bryant. Have you ever met a dog named Fido?
No.
Yeah.
I've met other dogs with like cliched names.
Right.
Although what's the most cliched dog name? Like Rex or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Fido was the one in the cartoons growing up. It would always be like a Fido or something.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that started, but yeah. Now we're just swinging around. It's sort of how like old people names are in for babies now.
Like what?
This is like a baby named Ethel.
Is that really?
Yeah, that's
coming around. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have Elmers.
Elmer's coming back. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
My grandpa was named Elmer, and I don't think I've ever met an Elmer. There was a Brewers pitcher named Elmer Descends. You remember him?
Yeah, a little bit.
He's like the only other person I've ever heard with that name, Elmer.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's Cub news before we get into the offseason stuff.
Elmer Descends side?
Elmer Descends, yeah, the stove is hot, baby. Descends is back at it again. No, it's, the whole Yu Darvish, Christian Yelich situation.
Oh, yeah.
Spicy. Basically, Darvish, the Astros are just like incredibly huge cheaters, turns out, and also just a bunch of assholes in the front office. They have some fun players and stuff, but a lot of these fun players that we like, big old cheaters too. Obviously, this couldn't have been, couldn't have been hidden from all of them, but there was a beat reporter that said of the people he talked to, there was 2 other teams he mentioned as that he heard coming up as like teams people thought cheated. People in the game thought cheated a lot. One of them was the Brewers. And there was a situation where Christian Yelich was at the plate and sort of possibly looking off towards where the bullpen was, and Yu Darvish stepped off. And Yu Darvish is so fun on Twitter. He's funny. He's really more revealing than most players seem to be.
Yeah.
And so he basically illustrated why he stepped off. He didn't say Yelich was cheating or anything, and then Christian Yelich was like, be better than this.
Basically, it was like, nobody needs to steal signs to hit you.
Right. No one needs help facing you. And then Yu Darvish just basically like, easy, man. He's like, I didn't say you cheated. And then he quoted himself saying, specifically, I'm not saying he's cheating. And was like, did I not put this down?
But then the hit and run thing the next day was hilarious. I guess... This actually happened, that some Japanese news network ran a story about a hit and run and used Darvish's photo.
Yeah.
For some reason.
It's very weird.
But then Darvish tweeted it in the context of like the hit and run that he suffered at the hands of Christian Yelich's Twitter account.
Yeah, exactly. And Darvish handled it great. And there were other players who jumped in sort of on Darvish's side too. Josh Donaldson tweeted and basically was like, actually, I could use some help. What do you, hitting Darvish like, what do you got? What do you got? Is
right.
What he said. He said, I think he said, I could use some help. What do you got? And Darvish was like, haha, like, you don't need any help, man, basically. So it's just like, and Yelich never said anything else about it, and it's just like really debagging it up pretty hard. And I mean, that's really all the Cubs news we had this week.
Here's a very specific joke. What do you think the Astros' favorite musical is?
Astros' favorite musical? What? Stomp. I was going to say...
Lots of banging on trash cans.
I was going to say... Yeah. I mean, it is a quite literal trash can situation. Yes. Stomping it up. Stomp's still going, I think, in New York?
I think it is. It's like off Broadway.
Yeah. It's just
It
in
seemed like
Jersey.
the sort of thing that would be cool for like 5 minutes, and then you'd have a headache and be like, I have to sit through another 2 hours of this.
Oh, yeah. Be like, I get it, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a drum, but with not a drum. Cool.
It's like how I would imagine having seen like... why am I blanking on his name? Who was that like crazy comic in the 80s who would just like scream?
Oh, Sam Kinison?
Kinison, yeah. Kinison for an hour seems exhausting.
Seems too much, yeah. I think so too. No, there was never a Kinison guy.
Nah.
Even watching old videos, I kind of don't get it.
Cool trench coats, though.
Yeah, good, dope-ass, friggin', murderer-looking trench coats. Yeah, so should we dive in off-season stuff?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into the spreadsheet, you nerd.
Yeah,
you nerd.
Oh, roast my ass! I'm dorking it up. I got a big old spreadsheet here. So basically, what you guys need to know, if you want to know where the Cubs stand in terms of payroll right now, really exciting thing. They are over the. They're over the first tier of the luxury tax. So or the competitive balance tax, whatever you want to call it. Basically, this is what happens. Since this is the Cubs' second year, over the $208 million is the first level. So they will be taxed at 30%, just on the amount, not on the whole thing, 30% on what goes over 208. Okay, So the second tier of the luxury tax is 228. At $228 million, there is also then a 12% tax on what goes over that. And then the final level of the luxury tax is $248 million, where the tax goes up even higher. Who cares? And your first draft pick is moved back 10 places. So we hear, for the second season in a row, we're all hearing that, like, oh, the Cubs aren't going to spend a bunch, Right. They're sitting right now at $214 million, basically, is where they're at. So they're already over that first level, and they're just $14 million shy of bumping into that second level.
And that 214, is that a total of 25 people?
That more than 25.
Okay.
So basically, it's your 40-man roster, and then your 40, and the minimum salary is $565,000. So you got a bunch of guys on the 40-man making that. So you've got, down to Danny Holtzen, Dwayne Underwood, James Norwood, Nico, Bradwick. All those guys are making $565.
Right.
And, it's not a sure thing that Holtzen will be back, so they could cut that. But what I'm looking at here, with the free agents we have out there, and the Cubs being so concerned about this, I think there should be no problem really doing any of it, but all the way up to the third. To me, 248, fine. Okay, you're using the end of the third as a limit. Okay.
Right.
But you could you could sign Anthony Rendon and you're basically at 244. When we're talking salary projections on this, what we're using is the Fangraphs average in terms of what they've predicted for these salaries. So the Cubs could sign someone that big and still be under the top level.
Well, one thing that I'm kind of hoping for, because when I think about the Cubs roster, specifically offensively, I know we keep falling into this trap of thinking that guys are going to be better than they actually are.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't feel the need to make that many changes in terms of the starters that the Cubs have.
Yeah.
Basically, and I think you agree with this, Hayward platooning with somebody I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
But having Schwarber in left consistently, I'm good with.
Me too.
I would love to. I would like to have Castellanos, but realistically, it doesn't seem like it's going that way. So let's say Hayward and right. So basically, I think you need some outfield help because I think Almora is a perfect change of scenery guy.
Yeah.
But that's just the outfield. In the infield, I don't want to trade Bryant. Obviously, Baez is at short. Rizzo's at first. They're locked in there.
Right.
If we think that Horner is ready to start the season at second, which I wouldn't be opposed to.
No, I wouldn't be I wouldn't freak out about that.
Right. Then maybe that saves you money that you can put towards an outfielder, towards a fifth starter, or somebody who would slot in as
in the
second
rotation
or third starter, whatever it is, and then some bullpen help.
Yeah.
Is that
reductive? To me, I think that's all right, because if you're looking at this roster, where do you really need help? And this is a place I highlighted with trade targets, basically. Center field, I think basically the Cubs could really use someone that can just play center field every day, be a real friggin' major leaguer out there.
Right.
And, Ian Happ could be that. Ian Happ is the offense is great, but he's not a great center fielder defensively. Right. You like him a lot better if you're platooning him with Hayward in right and you're getting him some infield starts. I think that's a better way to use a guy like Ian Happ. But yeah, center field basically needs to be addressed. And you want another starting pitcher because right now we have
you need one, really.
Yeah.
Unless you're thinking you're going to go with some sort of Montgomery Butler piggyback sort of situation where it's Mills and Underwood or something like that.
Right.
But I don't know that that's a good
idea.
Right.
Tyler Chatwood obviously got his shit together in a little bit more this past year. But how confident do you feel with Tyler Chatwood at the back of your rotation when you also have a Lester who's getting older and declining, and last year was not a great one for John Lester, and I could definitely see Lester having a bit of a bounce back like CC Sabathia had late in his career too. So I'm not worried about Lester, but you're not counting on a front of the rotation Lester anymore.
No, and also I think that means that, and this is part of the reason they probably shouldn't have traded Montgomery. The Cubs need more guys like what Montgomery was,
right.
Swingman types, or people like what Chatler.
The Chatwood Butler
yes,
combination.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like what Chatwood was last year, where Lester's probably you're not going to see Lester going more than 5 or 6 most games. Hopefully Darvish does. Hopefully Hendricks does. But Quintana has not gone consistently deep into games.
Right.
And if you have Chatwood starting, which is a potential, if he's anything like he was or like he's been really over most of his Cubs career, even if he's getting guys out, he's still running up pretty high pitch counts.
Right.
So I think you need at least a few guys in your bullpen who can go multiple innings.
Yeah, and Alec Mills looks like he looked like a guy who could be interesting as a swingman, but it's tough because do you want to count on Alec Mills to be basically the guys you're thinking about counting on as a fifth starter? You don't feel super solid about any of them right now. Alec Mills, Tyler Chatwood, both guys who could do well, but also as you say, those are guys. If you're pairing it with a Lester, you know you're going to need multiple innings out of that bullpen, and those are guys who could maybe be extremely valuable in that way.
Is your inclination that the Cubs are not going to go after a top tier starter? It would be more like someone to slot in as like a 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't see the Cubs going into the the Garrett Cole Strasburg level.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think it would be a shock. It would be a shock if Garrett Cole didn't end up in Anaheim or with the Yankees. Basically, Cole and Strasburg have a lot of the same market. You're talking about like Anaheim, San Diego could be looking for a big starter, and the Yankees. So I think those guys the Cubs are not going to go after. Even though, like we said, if they decided they really wanted to, they could sign one of those guys and stay under. They could be under the top level of the tax. It's just, I think we just all know that's not how it's going to be. Also, let's just get this out of the way. Addison Russell is due to make over $5 million if he's tendered a contract. So he's due to make about $5.1 million is what he's projected to. So don't do that. DFA.
What do they have to pay him?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Don't have to tender him a contract. Basically it's an arbitration year, so he goes to the arbitration hearings and he gets what he gets, or you just don't tender him a contract and he's a free agent. So I think that has to be the move. If we're concerned at all about money, which sucks, but they are, you save $5 million.
Yeah, even in a world where Addison Russell has had an immaculate off the field reputation, I don't think you could justify $5 million for somebody with the production or lack thereof that he's had.
No, especially when he's not filling a hole for you anywhere. This is not a guy who fits on this team anymore.
I mean, the hole he fits is literally like late inning defensive replacement.
Right, and if you're going to do that, Jose Iglesias is out there, a guy I wanted signed last year, signed a minor league deal with the Reds. You can just go get that. He was
pretty good last year. Right?
Yeah, he did fine. He had a good first half offensively, then fell off sort of back to what he is. But I mean, basically, he's what Addison Russell gives you, except probably even better defensively at shortstop. So yeah, and then once you get past those top guys, here's some of the other pitchers on the market. You've got Hyunjin Ryu, who's projected around $16 million is what it looks like he's going to get. I don't think the Cubs are going to be paying that much for Ryu. Zach Wheeler is a guy who just screams the Astros are going to sign him. Just a guy who has, one of the top 5 highest fastball velocities. Guys like that go to the Astros and then, they Garrett Cole it up, basically.
He's got a bit of an injury history, though, doesn't he?
Big time. Yeah. He's been injured a lot. Over the last couple of years, he's been very valuable when he's played. But, I mean, there's a chance you could see the Cubs. I mean, I wouldn't be super shocked to see them go after Zach Wheeler, who has a lot of sort of like rich man's Tyler Chatwood vibe in terms of stuff and arm. But yeah, I mean, I think you're looking more at the tier after that, which, Cole Hamels is in, but also Julio Teheran, of the Braves, formerly of the Braves, is available.
Formerly Braves ace, really?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Opening day starter a couple times. So he's out there and, I think Kyle Gibson is a guy from the Twins who looks like the Twins won't re-sign.
I saw you wrote down John Gray.
John Gray is a trade target. It's sort of like a very hot, it's a hot trade target for a guy with big stuff who people would like to get out of Colorado, I think.
I've heard this before somewhere.
I know. Is there someone in the Cubs in the Cubs rotation / bullpen right now who's just like that? Yeah, I do think John Gray is a more reliable starter, but I think it would also take a lot to get.
Who do you think is like a realistic, even if it's like a non-sexy signing for a Cubs like starter that they could go out and sign?
Honestly, like to me, I think Kyle Gibson is probably the level they'd be looking at if they looked at anything, which it might cost you $10 million, but it's a guy with decent stuff, good ground balls.
How old is he?
He's around 30, I think 30, 31 maybe.
I honestly have no idea who that is.
Minnesota Twins, like middle of the rotation guy. You're looking at you're expecting a 4 ERA from this guy. It's not sexy. It's basically it's a slightly harder throwing right-handed Quintana is what you're talking about.
Right.
So none of this is sexy, right? It's like you're not. So that could be a place where the Cubs get creative in a trade, and that's really like it's hard to know what is going to happen before we see what significant players the Cubs are actually thinking about trading, because I think that's going to happen, that probably happens before they get deep into the free agent market,
How much money do you think the Angels have?
How much do they have? Yeah, I mean, like
they have a lot of money to spend, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. And Artie Moreno has been one of the few owners who seems really down to spend money. You know,
well, that's the only reason I bring it up is like you remember that year, whenever it was that it was like an offseason that they signed like Josh Hamilton, Pujols, and maybe somebody else.
Right.
They just spent like a crazy amount of money. Mm-hmm. Is there a world in which Wilson, they would they try to like? Is it possible for them to try to sign like Cole and Strasburg?
They could. Yes, they do have the room for that.
Because then if they do that, even with the exact roster they have now, with
Mm-hmm.
the best player in the world on the team and Madden, they immediately become like a legitimate team.
Yeah, they could be a real threat out there, and then
because they've never had starting pitching in this era,
right? Yeah, so I think like I think it would be a big surprise if the Angels didn't sign one of the real top end starting pitchers. You know,
right.
I think they're going to go after both Cole and Strasburg, and see what shakes out there. But the Angels, I do think make sense for the Cubs because that's a team that could use catching. That's a team that has David Fletcher at third base. Now, I don't think I tried to look at things creatively. I don't see a scenario where a Chris Bryant trade makes sense for the Cubs. Mm-hmm. I just don't. I don't see a way where that helps your window because I think it just shuts the window more on 2 years here. I don't see you getting a return for Chris Bryant that is going to be anything near what a healthy Chris Bryant is. So I'm just kind of not considering that. You know, I do think Wilson Contreras is a more likely piece to deal. But what's your feeling about Contreras as a trade piece?
I mean, I could see why people think that. Especially because of the production that Caratini put up last year.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about this the other night. I don't think that it's reasonable to expect that those numbers and that production would continue over the course of like how rigorous it is to catch 160 times a year or whatever it would be.
Right. It's the most rigorous position to play. If you get 130 games out of your catcher, that's a full season.
Right. But if you're talking about a situation where you're trading Contreras, Caratini is your primary starter, you pick up an Alex Avila type of like backup sort of guy like the
Robinson Chirinos.
Yeah, whoever it may be, to fill in some games and not have him take on that workload for the first time in his career and then get like completely gassed. Maybe if you actually look at the wins above replacement, it wouldn't be that off in terms of like what that would add up to. From a biased, I love Wilson Contreras standpoint, I don't want to see him traded.
Same, and I think it's Wilson Contreras is right there at the best in the world at catching in every way except tricking umpires. Basically, except for framing, Wilson Contreras, is basically him and Gary Sanchez and JT Realmuto are the best hitting catchers in the world. He is right there, one of the best arms in the world as a catcher. Pitchers seem to like working with him. I mean, that's a level as far as catchers calling games and working with the pitchers that I don't know how to judge that, you know.
Right.
But it seems like the pitchers get along with Wilson well, you know. Yeah.
Although Randy Rosario did tell me in person that he prefers Caratini catching him.
It is funny that
Randy Rosario of 9 ERA fame.
Yes, exactly. Right. Was Wilson catching him in AAA when he couldn't get anyone out in Iowa? God bless him. We love Randy Rosario here, and we wish him the best in Kansas City. But I do like that last year when you went to Randy Rosario's house in the Dominican. Right?
Did I break him or something?
Yeah, I mean it can't be. We can't count it out. But I like that he gave you like a bit of juicy gossip.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like you weren't trying to blow up anything, and he's like, Wilson Contreras is not the best receiver. It's like, Jesus Christ, Randy, we're just hanging out at your house. So I think, and it should be pointed out, Wilson Contreras makes $4.5 million. The amount of value you get is such surplus from a Wilson Contreras. I also think that this guy, I don't think you're going to get. I don't think your best team is trading Wilson Contreras. I think your best team is keeping Wilson Contreras. Although I do. If the Cubs are going to get something truly significant that includes pieces at the major league level this year, I do think that Contreras seems to be the clearest path to that.
Well, is part of the issue here that in the same way that the front office decided, like, we just need a change of scenery, or like, we need a different voice, and that's why Madden's gone, and that's why Ross is in. Are they going to approach the roster the same way and be like, well, even if it doesn't seem logical to everybody else, like, we just need to shake it up here?
Right. And I think we could see that happen. But, I mean, the ways in which you'd want to diversify things, you would think would be like adding contact rate specifically. That's something the Cubs are bad at, So it's like that's a specific thing. Outfield defense, I guess, but it's not like I don't know how the Cubs outfield numbers looked last year. But what we know is this: we know that Kyle Schwarber's an average defensive left fielder. That's fine. We know Jason Hayward's highly above average in right, and we know that Almora graded out as below average in center last year, which is really his main value. Is theoretically he's good defensively, but that's not there. And you're not. I mean, you have to be counting on Almora as like a fifth or sixth outfielder.
I've been a fan of Almora's for a while, but I think he's got like trade him to the Marlins written all over him.
Yeah, it would bring back nothing in a trade too. Is the thing,
but like he could start and hopefully he could like get
right.
like, just for his sake even. Like I like the guy.
Yeah, me too. I think he seems to be a great guy. People love him. I think I remember Kyle Schwarber saying specifically that Almora was his favorite teammate he's had.
Yeah.
And that's all great, but I did looking at the numbers of this stuff. The nightmare offseason for me. If the Cubs DFA'd Addison Russell, I'd love that. And if they DFA'd Albert Almora and did nothing else, signed nobody, they would drop under the luxury tax. So they would reset it. So don't tell the Ricketts that DFAing those two guys would drop them just under 208.
Yeah.
But you can't really count. It's possible, but
I mean, basically, you've got Rizzo, Javi, Hayward, and probably Schwarber are guys you look at as like they're not going anywhere,
right? And for different reasons. Hayward is a platoon player at this point. I think that's something we need to go into next year knowing and playing him like that. Unfortunately,
I think largely he's been played based on his contract.
Yeah, and based on his contract and his pre-Cubs history, and great teammate, whatever, and it's good to have a guy who can fill in and be an average center fielder. That's good, and a great defensive right fielder.
Great thirst traps on his Instagram.
Great thirst traps, sick bod, all these things are great. But he should only be playing against right-handed pitching at this point in his career. He hasn't proven that,
That or Phillies relievers late in games.
Phillies lefty relievers late in games, fine, too. So I think one thing, if you're looking at the things that the Cubs need to add this offseason, I think you need a starting pitcher, like we said, some way, get one more solid rotation piece. Someone to man center field with confidence, I think, would be wonderful. And basically a platoon partner, one way or another, for Jason Hayward in right field. Right-handed bats, and if basically here's a couple of options I wrote down for that as right field platoon bats. I mean, obviously Nicholas Castellanos would be wonderful to have playing in right all the time. He's projected to get $14 million or so. The Cubs could afford that.
Yeah, that's really not that much.
No, and he might make more. He might end up making more than that. That's just what the projection is right now. But whatever it is, I mean, the Cubs would likely be able to afford it just fine. But it's likely that they won't. Fine. You can make an actual baseball argument that you don't want your outfield defense looking like that. I get it. But Hunter Renfroe of the Padres is a lefty mashing right fielder, decent defensively, not high on base, but really high slugging. Hits a bunch of bombs. It hit a bunch of bombs in San Diego where it's very hard to hit bombs.
His initials are HR. What else is he going to do?
Great point. How did we not see? This is the kind of stuff. This is the analysis.
This is the kind of stuff you come here for.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Padres are looking for catching too. So it's like basically
keep Contreras, Caratini for Renfroe.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. I'm sure deal. I would that would make sense. And there it's
Kevin's in. Kevin the dog has his doubts.
Yeah, he's got it. Hunter Renfroe, Mitch Haniger
I like Mitch Haniger
in Seattle. He was hurt last year and wasn't quite up to the level of his breakout year the year before that. But Jerry DiPoto loves trading dudes. That dude trades just to trade. Yeah. So I don't know what that package would look like, but that I think is a name to keep an eye on.
I like Haniger.
Haniger could really be a great fit in right field, I think. And the Yankees have an incredible glut of outfielders, and Clint Frazier is another guy, corner outfield bat. I don't know what the fit would be as far as a trade between the Cubs and Yankees. We know they've worked together before, Glaber, et cetera. Right. But Clint Frazier
Castro,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Clint Frazier is a guy who I think could use a change of scenery too,
Yeah, because
just
he would play anywhere else
to get into play.
Yeah,
and he would be a really good fit in the corner outfield, getting a solid amount of platoon.
Why did I
bats.
think he was playing third base though? Was he?
No, I mean Todd Frazier was. Maybe that's why Frazier.
Is he only an outfielder?
Yeah, he's a corner outfielder. So those are a couple of the corner outfield bats that I think would be a good fit with Hayward if you could swing a deal that made sense.
How about center fielders?
Center fielders, here's the guys I got. Basically, I when I was looking at names here, partially I was also looking at teams that could use something that the Cubs would possibly be considering dealing. The Oakland A's have basically a hole catching. They don't really have a catcher there. So if you were to deal Contreras, a guy who's not making a lot of money, or possibly Caratini, who knows, but the A's have a center fielder named Ramon Laureano, who's very interesting.
He's a great center fielder.
Great defensively, incredible
I feel
arm.
like I've seen a bunch of clips of him robbing home runs.
Yes,
And that's a big center field, too.
Yes, very much so. Ramon Laureano would be really interesting. I don't know what it would take to get him. I mean, Contreras for Laureano to me that's the Cubs giving up too much. Still,
well, how's he offensively?
He's good. He's good. He's not. I'll look up his stats right here so I can be exact.
What do we got?
Ramon? Basically, the guy was worth 3.8 WAR last year. Hit 288 with on base at 340. He basically slash 288, 340, 521, OPS at 128. So he hit great last year. Stole 13 bases. That's a guy who I think if you were swinging a big deal, I think that's a guy to look out for if the A's decided that they needed catching more and could fill those outfield holes otherwise. So that's one name. We've got Starling Marte of the Pirates. The Pirates aren't going anywhere right now. They got a new general manager. Marte is on the hook for two more years at $12 million.
Ooh, that's pretty team friendly.
It is team friendly, but the Pirates are always looking to cut salary. So, I mean, could you see a world where an Ian Happ was included in a deal for Starling Marte, where they get more years of control with Happ, which the Pirates would be interested in?
Would that take like Contreras and Happ?
I don't think you'd have to do Contreras and Happ. I think Happ.
I also don't like PED guys, but I guess I'd look past him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's good.
Yeah, 2 years on that contract. That makes sense. Manuel Margot of the Padres, very good defensively speedy guy. Hammers left-handed pitching too.
I believe you were at a Cubs game where Strop gave up a home run to Marte that sailed over your head.
Yep, that's right.
The Cubs won that game. That's the only reason I bring it up.
They did, but it was right there. It was very frustrating. Bleacher people talking shit about his hat, and that happened. And then
really rough time for a Marte Parte.
Terrible time for a Marte Parte. And then I think once you go beyond that, I also wrote down Byron Buxton, who the Twins like a lot, obviously, but he's been hurt a lot, and the Twins just have a glut of hitters in that outfield too, and they're going to be looking to fill rotation spots because they're probably losing Kyle Gibson this year. Odorizzi signed the qualifying offer, so he's coming back. So I could see a world in which...
Interesting that he did that.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I know. It must be... It tells you the market ain't looking great again.
Well, he doesn't want to wait till June to get a fucking deal.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you could get creative if possibly going after a guy like Buxton. And then otherwise, beyond that, we're looking at like prospect types, where it's like Atlanta needs catching, and they've got Christian Pache and Drew Waters are hot, high-level center field prospects. Looking at center field as a whole, I think you're more likely to fill that via trade than something on the free agent market, because there's really nothing out there center field-wise.
Had you mentioned Dyson from Arizona?
Jared Dyson, yeah, he's been a hot name, I feel like, in Cubs rumors for years, and I'm looking at the numbers and I don't see it. Mm-hmm. To me, he's very similar to Billy Hamilton, who I would consider signing. The rosters are going to expand to 26 men.
Right.
To me, Billy Hamilton gives you what Almora gives you, basically bad offense, good defensive center fielder.
But he steals bases and Almora doesn't.
Yes, he can fill the Terrence Gore role, at late in games and stuff like that. So I think Billy Hamilton's a guy to look out for like an end of bench kind of signing.
Yeah, because despite the fact that I think people think Kemp is fast, he's really not not that guy.
Yeah, we've talked. Basically, he's short, and people just assume short dudes are fast. Right. Tony Kemp's not that fast. He doesn't steal bases. He's fine, you know. And Tony Kemp, I think, is a guy who you're likely to see on the Cubs filling out one of those last roster spots this year too.
Are we assuming that Zobrist is not going to be in the mix?
We're assuming that, but I would, in my dream off season, the Cubs who seem like emotional re-signs that I think actually would be good baseball re-signs would be Zobrist if you can get him on something very small money wise, you know, $5 million or less, and Strop. I would love to see Strop come back, see if he could, because I don't think he was right all year.
No, and there's reason to believe, like if you look at Strop's last few outings, he started to kind of look like the old Strop.
Right.
Let's get Zobrist as a player / bench coach.
Yeah, he can help out there. I mean, he's
kind of already would be anyway.
Right. I mean, I guess he's 3 years younger than David Ross, maybe, and Andy Green. Yeah, I would like to see Zobrist and Strop come back. Basically, also, I think they're guys who it's weird because it seems like they are great clubhouse guys. They are respected. They are team leaders. But it also seems like there is a bit of a culture problem in this clubhouse, you know?
Right.
It seems like that the players don't hang out, you know? They don't. That was something Madden noted.
They hang out with their dogs and their babies like a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, like a bunch of old dorks. Yeah, and they don't do it, and I guess there was very little team-centric prep work. It seems like guys were just very, very much on their own, and that's something David Ross wants to change.
Get ready to do some escape room, Cubs.
Yeah, it's just a lot of like trust falls and escape the room stuff. Shit. Yeah, so those are basically the center field targets I had lined up and right field targets.
Now, what do you think about the bullpen?
I mean, obviously I would like. Drew Pomeranz is the guy I'd be most excited about signing. He's, high pedigree guy, had a couple of really good years as a starter.
Great against lefties, right?
Mm-hmm. When he moved to the bullpen last year, he was excellent. He was great with the Giants, and then he got traded to the Brewers, and he was even better. And he's a guy who also can give you some length. He's not terrible against righties. He was a starter for a long time, but he's real dominant against lefties, and his stuff really played up, throwing into the mid-90s. So I think that would be a great guy to have in the bullpen. I'm looking at the bullpen market. It's another thing where the Cubs could definitely sign guys. They could, there are very good pitchers out there. I don't think they would spend the money to get some of these dudes, Will Harris from the Astros, for instance, has quietly been one of the best relievers over the past few years, and I think MLB trade rumors predicted the Cubs to sign him. But I just don't see them spending $8 or $9 million a year on a reliever when they already have Kimbrel in there.
And that's the other thing too is like I'm optimistic that Kimbrel will be closer to what we hoped he would be.
Right, or even if not, what we think of as Craig Kimbrel, a more solid closer. Than we saw. Yeah. What do you feel in bullpen wise?
Well, it's weird because I feel like a lot of bullpen pieces were actually like nice surprises last year. Like the CJ for Wick trade worked out great. Rowan Wick, also turned out to be one of the most reliable pieces in that bullpen out of nowhere.
Absolutely. Rowan Wick, basically Kimbrel after Kimbrel, who wasn't as good as Rowan Wick last year. I don't know who I trust more in that bullpen.
Right. So it seems like they have some guys they can use just from within.
Yeah.
But I don't really know who's out there. I haven't looked at.
I would say so for me. I would love Drew Pomeranz. Like I said, Fangraphs projects him to get a 2-year deal for $12 million, so $6 million per year. I would do that. Absolutely. Will Harris projected to get around $7 million-ish. I think that would also make sense. If you're shopping in the bargain bin for a Drew Pomeranz, Matt Moore, former top prospect.
Former guy who dominated the Cubs for 8 innings in Game 4.
As far as a left-handed guy who might be able to have his stuff play up in more of a strict relief role,
I think
would
ever
be interesting.
Pitched in relief?
He has, but he's been a starter for most of his career. I would be looking at him as a straight relief option.
And I'm fine to take a flyer on Brandon Morrow if it's on a minor league deal. Why
Absolutely. Not? Some people freaked out online about seeing, and it's like, I know we're sick of hearing about Brandon Morrow, but if it's a minor league deal, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, you absolutely give a minor league deal to a guy who, if he comes back, even if it's a 1 in 20 shot, is a guy who could be lights out, could absolutely be your 8th, 9th inning guy.
And if Morrow is a competitive guy, which probably he is, I imagine there's a part of him that like he feels bad that he got a bunch of money and didn't really get to do anything for the Cubs.
He specifically said, his agent said that he wants to sign with the Cubs. He feels like he has unfinished business there, that he would like to come back, and it seems like on a minor league deal if he doesn't get offered a major league deal elsewhere, which that makes sense. But those guys, you want to know some free agents out on the market relief wise?
Yeah.
Carl Edwards is available. I love Carl. I do think it's just too much baggage for him here right now. Yeah. So I would love to see him go to Houston and get in that cheaters pitch lab and work those spin rates. Hector Rondon, old friend, is available. And the guy the Cubs traded for Tommy La Stella, Arodys Vizcaíno, is available. So those are some like old Cubs ties guys who are available in the bullpen this offseason. And then there's just there's some weird names. Here's just some weird notable names that are out there. Your boy Jason Kipnis, who put the scare into everybody. Childhood Chicago Cubs fan. Who hasn't had a real great last couple of years in Cleveland, but he's a guy. The Cubs still. It's weird that the Cubs have 11 second basemen and a hole at second base.
Zobrist.
Yeah, I still think Zobrist on the cheap makes sense on a 1-year deal to come back.
Yeah.
If he's into it. Brandon Kinsler did a great job. He's a free agent. Dellin Betances is not going to play for a long time, but that could be a guy. Someone's going to give him money to hope he repairs that Achilles and comes back and dominates. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting names out there bullpen wise, but my guess is that the Cubs are going to choose to mostly fill the bullpen from within.
Yeah,
which, like you said, there was positive. Some stuff came out of that positively.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it's that's basically I mean, that's most of I think what we're looking at. Who do you most want to sign out of everybody on the free agent market right now? I mean, it's a tough question because like Anthony Rendon would be great, but
right. Perfect world, I would love to get like a top tier starter, even if it's like I think it gets pretty thin pretty quick after Cole and Strasburg, unfortunately, but
there's 2 number 1s out there.
Right. Who else is out there that's like a 2 or 3? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, I mean Ryu was a Cy Young finalist.
Yeah, he's like a Ryu or Wheeler.
I think that and Madison Bumgarner's out there.
Ooh.
I just have trouble seeing Madison Bumgarner as a Cub. It feels like
seeing him as anything other than a Giant is going to like make your brain hurt.
Right. And it seems like I just feel like he'd just go to the South. I feel like that's a Brave, or something.
Yeah.
If he leaves the Giants,
he doesn't seem like a Chicago guy.
No. But I mean, he'd be fun to have. I think that and depending on I don't know how many years he's going to get, but he's
I think get like 3 and 60 or something maybe.
He's weirdly so he's projected, Fangraphs projects him to get about $18 million a year.
Yeah.
On a 4-year deal. And how old do you think Madison Bumgarner is?
I bet he's younger than I think he is. I bet he's like 32 or something.
30.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
He feels like he's about 38 years old.
Well, yeah. Think of all because that first year that they made the World Series, was he a rookie?
I mean, he had to be. So if he's 30
or 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 10 years ago, he's 20 years old at that point. So, it's a guy, that's when John Lester, that's about the age where John Lester signed with the Cubs. So, if you're telling me basically Bumgarner's a cheaper Lester 2.0 as far as like a veteran you want, that would make sense to me to lock down a one rotation spot with a guy like Bumgarner would be interesting. And Cole Hamels is still out there. I don't think the Cubs it seems like he's destined to go back to Philly, but.
Yeah, that actually would be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But that would be interesting. I mean, if you sign Bumgarner, then you have 3 lefties in your rotation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but back to that. Basically, him swapping in for Hamels. One thing I think we're going to see. This isn't an off-season thing as much as it is something that's going to happen later in the year. I feel like, and this is more of a prediction for the year, but I think somehow a starter is going to emerge for the first time in a long time from the Cubs minor leagues. I think we're about on the cusp. Marquez, I think you could see coming in to the bullpen late in the year if everything goes well. Braylon Marquez, the Cubs' left-handed pitching prospect who throws 100 plus. which is beautiful, and it looks like the rest of his arsenal's coming around too. I think you've got guys like Tyson Miller dominated at AA, and then had a tougher time in AAA, like everyone did, juice ball stuff. But Corey Abbott is a guy who just has done nothing but succeed all the way up the line with the Cubs. Corey Abbott, Keegan Thompson is a guy, if he gets healthy. We're on the cusp. And Alzolay, too, who came up and was great for a minute and then sort of fell apart, and then he was hurt. But I do think at the end of the year, you're going to see one of those guys stepping up into a.
It would be nice.
Spot. It would be very nice. It would
considering they've developed no pitching.
Yeah, it would be about friggin' time. Oh yeah, and I guess one other guy we should mention as a target, Shogo Akiyama, the Japanese center fielder, which it looks like apparently he's asking for. I believe he's asking for 3 years, 15 is what they're saying. To me, I would take him, but not a guy who you're planning to start every day in center field. I don't think he's that caliber. He runs well, contact on base guy. But yeah, I feel like it's not that different from a Jason Hayward.
Cool.
Yeah.
Got anything else?
No, that's about all I got as far as a just off-season sort of rundown of what were names that are possibilities out there. And I mean, obviously, shit could get real crazy if Bryant, Mookie Betts, or Francisco Lindor get traded. Those are the three biggest names we've heard, and 3 of the top 10.
I just hope we don't have to wait until March for all of this to materialize.
Man,
remember when the winter meetings were interesting?
Yeah, that's why I went once.
Right.
That's why I just went and hung out in Tennessee like a dork, and there's nothing for fans. You just
there's worse places to sit at a hotel bar and drink whiskey.
Absolutely. And I hung out with and I met some very fun Cubs fans at the time, and talked to a guy who worked with the Eugene Emeralds, who that year was telling me about what a beast Eloy was going to be, and turns out he was right. Cool. This was years ago. Yeah. But I think that's about all we got.
Cool.
Let's get some action. It would be fun to talk about things that happened.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if you want to make some sick bets on basketball or football, I would recommend checking out Thrive Fantasy.
Yeah, would you? What happens over there?
Oh well, I'm doing this off the cuff right now. I'm not even looking at my phone. It's a DFS fantasy app.
Yeah, and it is basically you get to take individual prop bets. Put your bets down on that, and if you use the code awaygames, you get $10 for putting $10 in, so you win the bet already. Yeah.
Well, I'll be.
That's it, everybody. That's a rundown of your free agents and trade targets and stuff, and let's go have some fun and let's get better players. How about that? Cool. See you later.